I mean, we can play catch if you want. It's up to you.
Okay.
Or you can sit and still. It's up to you, whichever. But yeah, it's gonna be a short one today because we gotta get on the road and get down south before the end of the year. Here, you can have the rest of this one.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Love it, the show. En français.
Euh, le français.
Merci.
Merci.
Oh, well, you got both. I guess you want that or that?
Just the.
Okay.
Do you want this one?
Um, when we get in the car, that's fine. All right. All right, beloved. Thank you so much for being on. We're gonna be on just for a short while. Well, short in comparison for Sundays. Might even be shorter than what I think. The longest we're gonna go is, including when we shut everything down. The longest we're gonna go is about 10 p.m. Sorry, 10 p.m. Wow, that's too long. 10 a.m. New York time. I apologize. Uh, kind of, sort of. We are running late at the same time. We actually have an emergency, and we're headed down south. We got to get all the way down there by the end of the day. So we stopped by to make sure that we are obedient to what we're supposed to do, and we'll try to get this word in, continue our series, be obedient to that, asking for praying for my family, and I ask for your prayers continuously for myself as well and for my family, and just safe traveling, mercies, and all that. You guys will eventually know pretty much everything that's going on, but for right now, just out of respect for our family, going to ask everybody to kind of, just keep us in prayer. And sorry, I can't be more specific than that. So, but just keep us in prayer, and we thank you guys. We honor you. But let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna jump right in as we need to, and as we must. Prayerfully, everybody can hear and see me. I'm trying. We're on the road. I really don't have signal, so I'm got a little Wi-Fi with me or whatever. Can everybody see and hear me before we get started? Yes, no, maybe so. If you can let me know in the chat, please. Por favor. Gracias. Merci. Kedah Toda. Okay, yes. All right, let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osayi de Kitabuya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Wagwan, Kumsa, Kumsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Ensemble, Privet, Habarigani, Akwaba, Madase, The Descent, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, and the Faraku Kutana and the Wewe, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, greetings, grand rising, salutation. Hopefully your day is going well with you. Barakala Shem Yahava, Bakwar Tav, Rahashan Shalom, Anai, Kuava Aik, Achelit, and Servant to Christ, Mashalam Chem. Hello, everybody, peace. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. Glad to be in front of you one more again. I also want to put out there, tentatively speaking, I'm pretty sure we'll be doing this, but tentatively speaking, let's not say 100% yet. But to the sisters, I do apologize. This Saturday, which is when our emergency situation kind of kicked off, we were supposed to get our women's meeting back on track. I know it hasn't been going the last few months, so we were trying to get everything back on track. I promise you, that's a huge, huge reason. So what I'm going to attempt to do, I'm not going to say for sure until tomorrow, but what I'm going to attempt to do is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. This upcoming week at 7 p.m. New York time, specifically for the sisters, we'll try to do a live session just for you all. Yeah, so specifically just for the sisters, we'll try to do a live for you all, just for the sisters, okay? Tentatively speaking, I'll let you know 100% for sure tomorrow, Of course, it'll be sent out on the Google Calendar invites if we are doing them, and it'll be on the original Kofi_40 channel, and on hashtag Find Kofi. But just to let you guys know, so I apologize. A lot of stuff moving, as you can see. We usually don't even travel when we get into the winter because there's a lot of variables, and usually we get caught up in those variables. So we usually sit our butts down somewhere, but we have to be obedient. Well, not only that, we have to take care of some things here. So we're traveling on the road. Keep us in prayer. I apologize to the sisters. I really, really do. I ask that you keep us in prayer once again, and yeah, when it's time, everybody will know what's going on. All right, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started to say our Bible pledge. So if you can get ready, put your Bible, your device, your right hand in the air, repeat after me. If you can rise to your feet or reverence Yahweh's word in whatever way you're able to. While you're doing that, we'll say shalom and peace to everybody, and then we'll get started. How you doing, Cultural Prospects? This is Tamika. Is it K Blaze? I don't know if I saw that correctly. I'm sorry. I got a really small print on the device I'm using today. Let's see. This is Tamika, Liber Fatalian, or I might be. What's the face? Let's see, Little Ghostly. Okay. Sister Greta. Is it Naka? Nacha, please forgive me. Makut Debadach, Sister Greta, Clip Wave, and thank you for the love. Appreciate you, Rizzoli. Is it? Or Rizzoli, 1854. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. How you doing, Brother Alex? Sister Joy, Big Brother Thomas, Beverly Jenkins. I'm saying the government name. Maybe we'll say Beverly J or something because we got a few Beverlys to come on. Praise God. How you doing, Jay Nichols? Everybody, Lottie darn everybody. The Body Snatcher, okay, Carl Porter. And if I miss anybody on any platform, charges to my head, not to my heart, I appreciate you so very much. Thank you guys. We are literally pulling over to the side and doing what we can, making a little makeshift setup, a lot less than what we normally do. But we're gonna make it work. So if you can put your right hand in the air and just repeat after me. Yeah. Right? This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Amen. Yahweh Shem, his name, his authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you were doing in the presence of the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. All right, so
Shalom.
I'm on shalom. Thank you for saying shalom, Dan. So we're going to talk today. So our series, once again is called Reversing the Curse, means revisiting the lie. I might rush a little bit today because once again we have an emergency situation. We got to get on the road. So I thank you guys for being understanding of that in advance. But we'll try to we'll not try, we will do what we're called to do and also do what we're called to do. But thank you all for being on once again. Is it? Oh, Istanbul in the house? Okay, Istanbul. Cool. Thank you for being on with us. So we are looking at today in this series called Reversing the Curse, means revisiting the lie. How you doing, Hedu? Thanks for being part of the community. We're going to speak today on 1350, right? But 1350 and slavery. Really, I probably should have said 1350 and chattel slavery. But for right now, we'll leave it the way that it says. 1350 and slavery. So, if you're not aware, you wanna play catch, or you comfortable playing catch? Okay. We try to let him be active while we're out here on the road. We got a soccer ball and a football. Let me see. So I apologize once again. Not necessarily so much. Oh, it's flat. So we can use it over there. So, but basically, so we're talking about 1350, and we're talking about 1350 and slavery, or 1350 and chattel slavery. We're speaking on a myth, right? The myth goes like this. The myth is that 13% of the so-called American population commits 50% of the crime. Right? Most of you probably heard that, and I'm going to make it, how you doing, Brother TJ? I'm going to make it very clear to you, by the way, that in talking about and hearing that myth, etc., you need to recognize and realize that not only is it a myth, But when you do some research, you will discover that the only place that you're getting that from, the only places that you're getting that from is going to be alt-right, is going to be KKK, or it's going to be, it's going to be alt-right, it's going to be KKK, and it's going to be, what's the third group? Oh, and neo-Nazi, or really technically they weren't known as Nazi, SS. Okay? Probably better that I say SS, even though SS is just as weird. But I guess we won't get as many marks on the live sessions, right? On the platforms. But basically, if you hear that 1350, which once again 13% of the population commits 50% of the crime, very incomplete, a half truth, which is always a whole lie. So if you hear that, and how you doing, Sister Magnon, if I didn't say so already, you're usually hearing something that is, once again, neo-Nazi. You're hearing something that is that's neo-Nazi propaganda, that is alt-right propaganda, and that is SS propaganda. Now, if somebody says, but I heard it, on the news, they got it from neo-Nazis, they got it from SS, they got it from alt-right, they got it from KKK. If you say, I read it in the paper, they got it from KKK, they got it from alt-right, they got it, you hear what I'm saying? And by the way, let's not forget, just because somebody has a judge's robe on, doesn't mean that they can't put on a white hood, or that they can't trade in the sheets, as Minister Malcolm Shabazz taught us, as Minister Malcolm X taught us, that they can't turn into sheets, right, for that new cloak. So when we speak on this today, I want you to know, and thank you for the love, and how you doing, Spidey? When we speak on this today, we're talking from that perspective. Also, too, if we be honest, you guys already know how I feel, but I'm going to be using colonial constructs and social constructs, right? I've said this before, I have no problem with being called black. I know what it means and when to use it, when not, as far as law and things of that nature. So, yes, you will hear me go back and forth between saying so-called black or so-called white, and sometimes I'll just say black or white, because, to be honest, today we're going to be talking a lot about, colorism, racism, all the different things that pop up because of that, because we're talking about the 1350. So just giving in advance, I'm gonna try my best. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? How you doing, Sister Judith? I'm gonna do my best to ensure that we speak on these things as correctly as possible. I ask for a little bit of mercy because I will not necessarily always be able to say the term in such a manner that makes every single person comfortable. And to be honest, this is not necessarily a comfortable conversation. How you doing, Callum? So we're not here to pretend that everybody's going to be comfortable, regardless of what color or belief, etc., that you have regarding this matter, right? But we are here to ensure that we do have proper conversation, at least about it. Amen? Amen? How you doing, Luis? So, and I'm going to do my best, once again, making sure my son is active while we over here. He's not just going to sit down on the behind of the vehicle the whole time while I'm doing the live session. So you're going to have to deal with me being the dad today. But I will do my best to catch as much stuff that comes in the chat as possible. How you doing, Brother Alton? So, and as long as everybody can hear me, I will be turning every once in a while to throw the football. But outside of that, we should be fine. That's right, for educational purposes and righteous purposes and spiritual purposes only. All right? So, when we say 1350, once again, the statistic that's used is used to tell us that 13% of the population, which is supposed to be the so-called African American percentage, right, or of the country, is supposedly supposed to commit 50% of the crime. Sometimes you'll even hear this said to be 1352 or 1355. Now, some of these statistics we're going to use today, we're using what the alt-right and what the KKK and what the SS use. So when we use these things, when we talk about these statistics today, please be aware that some of them are not true. I will try to tell you as much as possible, but still, we're going to go through them, a lot of them, as if, what's alleged is something that is true enough for us to go through and decipher, or at least that is true enough because of what it's trying to do to the mind of our people today, right? How you doing, Anthony? How you doing, Brother Dennis? And for the sake of discussion, by the way, for today, if you're talking about my people who are called by Yahweh's name, of course we know what time it is with that. But my people are those, to be honest, that are not just allies, but are not just, right, but are persons who are part of the family of persons who fight racism, white supremacy. For the purposes of today, you family, really every day, right? But the focus on today's topic is even a little bigger than the Negro, although we know it leads ultimately to being anti-Negro, anti-black, right? So, right, for many of you, that's one and the same. Okay, so the statistic is supposedly that so-called black persons commit who make up 13% of the population commit 50% of the crime. First of all, this is even a worse statistic than many think. And if I were to be apologetically sound, if I were going against, or if I were actually to argue the other side or for the other side on this, they actually argue it wrong. If it was going to be a better usage of their time to make sure that they actually were getting more bang for their buck on this racist rhetoric, they actually should say that they're talking about black men, right? They actually should say that they're actually speaking more to the so-called black men, right? So in essence, if you break that down, then they're really saying more like 6% of the population commits 50% of the crime. So it's actually the wrong statistic. If they and some are smart enough to do this. I learned it by watching other persons who use the rhetoric and actually are better at using the rhetoric than others. So if they were to use it correctly, technically, what they're actually trying to say is be afraid of black men, and black men commit all the crime. Therefore, it wouldn't be 13% of the population if you believe that so-called black persons only make up 13%, but it would actually be 6% of the population because they're really speaking to just black men. I'm sorry, what was that again? What you have in there? You heard that 90% of sex crimes against children were committed by white men? Well, that's not exactly true, but it's not that far off either, unfortunately. Right? But I'm going to get into I have to be careful. And can I make another disclaimer real quick? Once again, we're talking about colonial constructs, social constructs. I'm not the one to say all. I'm not the one to say that just because you're white, you do this, because you're black, you do this, because you're Asian, you do this, because you're Italian, you do this, because you're Zulu, you do this, et cetera, right? There's things that are cultural, obviously, right? But there's really two things we must comprehend in this conversation, all right? Not one, not right? Not ma, but do, right? Two things you must comprehend in this conversation, or at least two ways you can look at anything regarding this. What's happening is either you're going to look at this through the prism of genes or genetics, right? Eugenics and stuff, which means, right? Or you're going to look at this through what's going on as far as society. So either it's societal or it's genetical, or genetical. It's either genetic or it's societal. What does that mean? That means what we're seeing is because no matter what you do, you can't escape it because you're born with it, or society affects what's going on. And as we teach all the time, even though you can say certain things come with your genetics for sure, right? But we know that no person is greater than the society, and no individual is greater than the society, and no society is greater than the individual. How you doing, Temple of Blood and Honey? So, if no society is greater than the individual, that means the society needs to uplift the individuals and actually look at individual circumstances. And if no individual is greater than the society, then we can't talk about anything unless we talk about the society we come from, right? There's no such thing as a self-made anything. Can I say that one more again? No such thing as a self-made anything. Nobody is self-made. Never been any such thing as a self-made billionaire. You know why? Because somebody got to give you the billions. Even if you have a great idea, somebody got to work for you. Parents have to be involved, right? You have to get the right chances. Persons have to believe in your idea, et cetera, right? So no society is greater than the individual, no individual greater than the society. No self-made anything, including, as much as we would like to use this, a lot of persons who are at least closer to my side, if not on my side, we would like to use this rhetoric to against the enemy, right, of proper society and proper humanity, or at least persons being treated as human beings. We cannot say that the racist is self-made. They're not self-made, they're not self-taught. There's a system in place. Now, for those of us who had a belief that I have, we also have to be honest about the fact that there's something spiritual going on in that too. And how you doing, Roots? All right, thanks for being on. What'd you say? There are certain attributes that are dictated and capped by genetics. There are, right? So that's why I said there can be, but for the most part in this topic, we're not going to do the thing where just because you're born white, it automatically means that you're going to be racist. And right? Just like we can't say just because you're born white, you're automatically going to be righteous. Just like we can't say that just because you're born black, that all skin folk is kinfolk, and you're going to be righteous, and that we should trust everything that you say, right? But also, because if we look at this, the system is there, right? So the system is in place. Even when you use the term world, for those of you who are Bible scholars, even when you use the term world, right? The word world in the Greek is talking about the word system. It's cosmos. It's a synonym. So world is a synonym for system. That's what is actually a greater definition than what you usually use. So when it says in John 3:16, for Elohim so loved, or Achaba, the world, the system, they're saying he so loved the system. Not this system, not a wicked system, but his system. That's why he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him being the door to the what? To the system, the kingdom system, the heavenly system, the anti-racist system, right? Whoever so believeth in him shall not perish, but have what? Everlasting life. Because as much as persons would like to think that there's going to continue to be racism allowed in heaven, it doesn't work that way, right? Or the heaven inside of you, you can't say that you believe in this and then you say that you have the kingdom of heaven in you, and then you still out here being racist. Even though technically racist means something different, because it would mean you are proficient at the competition, or proficient at being a human being, or bare minimum proficient at being so-called black, white, whatever. And somebody who is proficient and efficient at being so-called black, white, whatever, if they are efficient at it and proficient at it, it would mean that they actually know how to treat other persons properly, whether they are the same color or not. That's part of your being a decent human being. Okay, so the 1350 rule, once again, says that 13% of the population, which really they mean 6%, they really mean only black men, but they say basically out of the 13% that are so-called black in the United States corporation, they try to teach us that really we commit 50% of the crime. Now, first things first, we got to deal with this right off the top. A lot of you already know this, have heard this, but we're just going to make sure we get this stuff right off the table from the beginning. And how you doing, East Atlanta? Thanks for being part of the community. Right from the drop, right from the jump. Let's hit this real quick. First, it's a wrong statistic, because if you say 13% of the population commits 50% of the crime, that's crazy work, because number one, you're saying that every man, every woman, and every child that admits to being black, right? That admits to being black. You're saying 13% of the population that admits to being black, that's not black, but admits to being black, is committing it. Number one, that's a lie, right? Number two, you have it wrong, because it's not that even out of that 13% so-called black persons commit half the crime in America. It's that 13% of the population is arrested, right? Is arrested for half the so-called is arrested for what you looking for? What? Yeah, that's what we're doing. But we're really saying 13% is arrested, or at least is documented for half of the crime, which is another part we don't talk about. Because if, for example, we have to talk about societal issues. If, for example, during the flood, anybody remember a little hurricane not too long ago, right? I'm old enough at least to remember a hurricane not too long ago called Katrina. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina came around, the levees broke, or some would say the levees weren't maintained or taken care of ever. But that being said, the levees broke, flooding happened, persons were stuck there, not everybody could get the help they needed, some persons wanted to stay, et cetera, et cetera. Some persons died there, et cetera. You would see in newspaper articles, where you would see one newspaper article says a family is going into the store, right, and is looting during the flood. How dare they? So wrong. Another article says, look at this family, look at how great they are. They're making sure that they're taking care of their family. They're brave enough to go into the store. during these storming situations to make sure their family eats. The family that was considered to be brave was white. The family that was considered to be looters was black, right? So even the consideration in the midst of a flood, in the midst of a situation where persons are going to die, in the midst of where the person who's the store owner isn't going to be able to use the food and has enough insurance where it shouldn't matter anyways, but they're going to look different, right? And thank you, moderators. It's going to be one of them times today. They don't like stuff like this. I appreciate y'all, right? I actually meant to say earlier today, today's topic is not for children. I mean that as far as your maturity level, right? And I also mean that for those that are coming on, I'm doing a little research, come to find out that many of you who are trolls are literally underage children who have 4 or 5 burner accounts and don't care if somebody tries to come for you, whatever, because you don't think there's a penalty for it. So on today's topic, if you got children SOC, you might not, I don't mind mine being here or whatever, but it depends on where your child is, right? You might want to look at their maturity level and stuff and see where they're at, number one. Number two, if you are a child or if you're showing yourself to be very immature or just you'll have the maturity level of a child, or you show yourself to be a child, moderators, I'm asking extra today. I know normally today is your thing, or it's always your thing, you in charge. I'm literally saying for today's topic, we might want to go ahead and wreck shop. And somebody doesn't like that. I don't usually say that. It usually, I'm not trying to say this is a normal thing, whatever. I'm saying for today, especially if we start getting certain things. Today is not for the children. Today is not for the light of heart. Today, if the moderators don't get to you, I'm gonna get you off here today, because doing some research and looking at where you guys are coming from to troll, I don't always do that, but I had a little bit of chance to do so, and guess what? A lot of you guys are children who have a whole bunch of burner accounts and are trying basically to do nothing but like get a little 2 seconds of fame. So today's gonna be the day where I'm just not dealing with it. All right. Also, I have to be quicker, and we got emergency situation. And if I be honest, because of some of the stress and stuff that we're going through, I'm not trying to go off on anybody. So I'm gonna do my best to go ahead and not do that by just making sure we kick y'all off easy, quick, fast, in a hurry. Okay. All right. Normally we go back and forth with you a little bit. Today I ain't got the time, and today I'm just be honest with you. I don't know if I had the capacity. Right. So, well, like I said, SOC, pray for me, pray for my family. Right. Today's one of them days where hopefully you don't see, the human being come out. I know I'm not supposed to show that, but every once in a while he pops up. Today might be one of them days if somebody hits the right chord. So it might be easiest for me today to just get rid of the immature person. All right. How you doing, Sister
Shalom.
Judith? Shalom to you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're saying shalom to you. Okay. So, anyways, how you doing? One who whispers. Praise God, Brother Lamont, right? So, okay. So, and by the way, if there's anybody in the Northeast, sorry, not the Northeast, Central North region, Brother Lamont is part of the family officially. We're going to have our text train and everything together.
No,
But he's there with me.
child joined.
What did he say? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. So don't worry about that. Let me handle that. So, but how you guys doing? So, once again, where am I at? I apologize. Oh, so yeah. So just making that clear. So if you get off today, or you see me stop and deal with something, it's because we're not dealing with it today. All right. So 1350 is not saying that we, as 6% of the population is black men, or 13%, we don't commit 50% of the crime. Number one, we don't commit 50% of the crime that's actually is crime, because a lot of crime for so-called white persons is not even going to be recorded, or is going to be expunged, or it's going to be treated like it never happened, or they won't get arrested for the same thing that somebody would as if they were black, right? Just being honest. I'm using colonial construct, social construct today. It is what it is. So that's one of the big things. Then another thing we have to realize is that even when they're talking about that 50 or 52 or 55%, they're talking about violent crime. And if we be honest, that's not even 100% true. But if we be honest, we as so-called black persons in America, if you're using the 13%, because once again, it's a bunch of persons that will not even admit to being so-called black. Thank you, Sister Mignon. I appreciate you. How you doing, Minister Moselle? There are a lot of persons who won't even admit to being so-called black, but also we have to admit, here's something we got to admit, if we use this statistic they're using, it's actually correct that we do commit probably more violent crime. It's probably more like 37%. No, 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 that's for crime overall. But we do actually commit percentage-wise, and definitely per capita, if you want to use that thought process, rather than percentage per capita or rather than percentage per person, you could say that our communities are more violent when it comes to crime. Now, here's something that nobody talks about though. Once again, why don't we talk about the societal structure? Well, because we were taught things like the doctrine of discovery, that if you live somewhere and we colonize you and you're not a white Christian nationalist, right, then there's no way you can be an American exceptionalist. In other words, if you're not white enough, then you're not smart enough. All right, thank you. How you doing, Brother Rodney? So if you're not white enough, you're not smart enough. That's how a lot of persons think, right? Hey, how you doing? See, like the person right there, right? And today, like I said, I ain't got time. Thank you, moderator. I really ain't got time for him today. So, but that's what they do, right? Even somebody comes on and uses that homonym. Go back to Africa, because you've been taught that, first of all, a lot of us are from Africa and a lot of us ain't from Africa. I happen to have some of my family is from here, but a lot of us ain't even from there, right? And you ain't from here. But they don't look at themselves as criminals. They can take over a whole nation. It's been seeped into the culture. You can take over a whole nation. I think I said shalom, Brother Alex. If not, peace, how you doing? They can take over a whole nation. But you and I are supposed to act like it's wrong if we want to put a black-owned business sign on the side of the building. You see that? And how you doing? Oh, hey, how you doing, Sister Monica? Right? So we've been taught and raised, and not just, once again, not just black folk, white folk, and in between, whatever you want to call it. We've all been raised and educated by the same system. Matter of fact, we've been raised by a system that says that because I'm so-called black, I should automatically agree with the LGBTQ+, which is a so-called white movement against black, and treat everybody like they're the same within the movement, as if when the cops show up, right, that they're not going to shoot at the black person because he's gay, and they'll treat both of them equally. I know it's going to get rough. It's going to get rough today. I'm going to try my best to massage it as best I can, but it's going to get rough, but we're going to tell the truth. How you doing, Damaged Soul? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Steve? How you doing, Wally Lai? Salam, right? Peace unto everybody coming in. How you doing? I don't know who that is. Somebody with a skull or whatever. Oh, thank you for being on anyway. Can I repeat? It'll be repeated enough, right? So today when we hear this 1350 thing, that person's go 1350, 30% of the population commits 50% of the crime. Number one, it's illogical and it's stupid to even give that the thought process, because number one, that means every black man, woman, and child literally goes around committing crime, right? So, but by the way, if you're born in this system says because you're born, you're a problem. That's why we said earlier, we're gonna have to have an honest conversation, because as much as persons want to act like eugenics still don't exist, you know, like persons don't use eugenics on IQ tests and things of that nature still, and don't even worry about black EQ and things of that nature. But we want to pretend that that's not a problem still. Not only is it a problem, but it's something that is a leading problem still, right? And by the way, if you're on this platform over here, all you got to do is go, matter of fact, either platform, you know, really you see what we're talking about. But the theme of the series we've been doing for a while now is called Reversing the Curse Means Revisiting the Lie. The lie we're focusing in on today is 1350 and slavery, which really should be 1350 and chattel slavery. And how you doing, Monique? Monique Graham. All right, got another Monique on here. so we're going to speak on that honestly, right? We're not going to tell half truths, right? We're going to tell contextual facts that reveal truth, okay? Because a fact does not necessarily mean I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking. I'm doing all right. Pray for us, right? But so, and all the things that we're talking about today, we will make it very clear. We want to make it very clear to you that that 1350 is a myth. Not only is it a myth because they're trying to say black men, so-called black men, commit 50% of the crime in America, which means that they're saying that 6% of the population does, but then they're really talking about violent crime, which really, even though we don't commit 50% of it, we must admit that in our communities, we actually do commit more than what others do. Now, let's once again get to where we were headed. Why is this? This is because of the fact that basically you live like an animal. And somebody would say, up, see, here they go. Here go one of those animals, one of those blacks, one of those persons who can't take accountability. And the reality is, no. I actually not only believe I should take accountability, I believe I should make change, and I believe that our changes should come without you present in our community, especially if you uphold racism and white supremacy. And by the way, that means if you a Sambo too. I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble and get us kicked off. I'm only going to use these words sparingly, but I'm not going to withhold them today. We're going to be real. That counts for you. If you're a buffoon, if you're a coon, if you're into buffoonery, yeah, put the two together. If you're a rocket raccoon, if you're a Sambo, if you're a so-called Uncle Tom, a lot of you don't know that Uncle Tom is not actually the one that you should be worried about at Sambo, but if you're a so-called Uncle Tom, whatever it is, right? If you're a sellout of any kind, if you're boule, right? We're gonna call it out. You usually are more problematic. You are the ones that get Huey shot. You are the ones that get Fred shot. You are the ones that think that you're off in Malcolm while they put blanks in your gun, and the CIA are actually the ones taking them out. You are the ones, allegedly, that stand on the same platform that MLK gets shot on. Right? You are the ones who spit Balaam doctrine, which is preached about in Revelation chapter 2, verse 14. Anything that's against Israel, right? Any of y'all, but especially those of you who are traitors to your own family. So some of them are getting grafted in. That's different. But those of you who are traitors to your own family, really the human family. But let's be honest, we're going to talk about these social constructs, and you guys know a lot of you live by the social construct, what you do to nationality. Well, then you worse than any others. You're I won't say you're worse, but you just up there. You up there with Tucker Carlson. You're up there with Nick. Is it Nick Fuentes? Is that his name? We're going to talk about him today too, right? You up there with all of them. Said God's children. Well, first of all, I don't worship God. God is your Germanic way of saying you can worship whatever you want. But those who worship Elohim, the Almighty, the only wise Elohim of the Bible, right? If we're talking about Him, right? There's a difference. There's children of the devil and there's children of the Most High. They're supposed to be at enmity with each other. We're not supposed to be in the same place. We don't consider ourselves to be the same. One is hated, one is loved. That's Genesis chapter 3 on, right? That's Genesis 28 on, right? That's 2nd Esther chapter 6 verse 9 and 2nd Esther chapter 9 verse 6, one of them on, right? That's Malachi chapter 1 verses 1 through 3. The symbol on my shirt, I don't know what it has. Well, I guess because I'm wearing it, I know what it means. The same thing that this means, right? By the way, if you actually know what it means in the original, before the Kemetic person took it, and before some of them in Kemet started using it for worship, you'll discover that in Kush, or if you meet a Cushitic person, they'll tell you when they see it, they'll say that's ours. It means something different than what many of us think. But yes, over time, many think that it's something to be worshipped, which is not, or something to be used in worship, which is not, or many persons have forgotten that it's actually a cursive version of the Tav. But once again, my purpose and my assignment for today is to come and talk to you about a series that we're in called Reversing the Curse, means revisiting the lie. And in this series specifically today, we are talking about 1350 and chattel slavery. Period. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're focusing on today. How you doing, Marty? Thanks for being part of the community. And Ancient Winds, I see you. Thank you for being on. So that's what we're talking about today, right? That's what we're focusing on today. Now, that being said, when we talk about 1350, when we talk about the 13%, the 50%, you have been taught something to believe it. But once again, we must admit in our community that we have been more violent. But here's another thing. Does violence beget violence? Does violence beget violence? No, people haven't used it to be a claim for your Lord and Savior, right? If you know, especially if you know Abda or the original Hebrew, or what people call Paleo Hebrew, they're not doing that. But once again, persons will take this off of anything because Christian nationalism is more important than truth, right? so let's do this again. Let's do this again. You must recognize that everybody was taught Willie Lynch stuff. Everybody has. Everybody and their mama was. If you live from sea to shining sea, and I'm talking about as far as the West is from the East, not just the United States Corporation, or at least the fake version of the United States of America, if you know the difference of what I'm talking about. You have been taught American exceptionalism. You've been taught doctrine of discovery. This is the only reason why you guys still believe that somebody can go into somebody else's country where everybody knows there's an animal and discover an animal that everybody already knows is there. How did you discover gorillas in the late 1800s when persons kept telling you don't go in the lowlands and the highlands because there's gorillas there? It's only because the persons telling you aren't even persons. They're not even considered to be human beings. And if we're going to talk about 1350 is one of the latest things to come up with. Once again, whenever you hear 1350, I don't care who spouses it. I don't care who spits it. I don't care who performs tricks under the moniker, right? Under the billboard, right? On stage for you, over stage, it says clear as day, 1350. I'm here to tell you that they only got it from 3 sources: KKK, alt-right, or SS. That's it. So when somebody spits that, you have to already know, especially when somebody comes in the comment section, the chat, or when somebody's trying to talk to you, and you start talking about crime, or you start saying something, or you're just speaking, and somebody comes in and says 1350, and then leaves the chat, you already know what time it is. That's just racism. Now, there are some who actually believe the 1350 rhetoric because you believe that black persons are born wicked and are born violent, right? You said Anunnaki, yeah, okay. Well, before you go into Thoth and before you go into things like that or whatever, you got to make sure that you're reading the actual stuff together. Make sure you're putting it with the actual Book of Dead and the Book of Life, which some persons think is mythical as well and don't even think exists. But stuff's out there, right? And when you get a chance to go over to Kemet, make sure you read the so-called hieroglyphs, what are actually known as the words of the law of the Neptunes. Make sure you know the context of it instead of what Eurocentric persons have told us about. But that's not my focus once again today. If you can keep going there, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to have to let you go for today. No offense, just today is one of them. I'm just being honest. My humanity might show up. Also, 2, I got to get through something. And also, 3, I usually have persons who are on here arguing just for the sake of arguing. Today, we're literally talking about 1350. So I appreciate you and saying, I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say until you tell me what an Ankh is. But today is not the focus. No shade, just is for today. All right, how you doing, Willie? Thanks for being part of the community. So, when we speak on all these different things, right? When we speak on what these things mean and all this stuff, excluding 1350, right? Focusing on 1350. 1350 exists to make it okay to continue to lock the persons up. The persons who teach it, the persons who perform it, the persons who proclaim it, the persons who want you and I to spend a whole bunch of time telling the next generation that, yeah, the only reason why we're going through this and the only reason why we're going through that is because of 1350, 1350, 1350. If you would just get rid of this black presence. Now watch this. You can't just off them because Willie Lynch taught that you don't just, that's part of the problem. See, they used to just hang us. And they forgot that they weren't supposed to do so. They started hanging us again, right after, right after the Civil War was lost. If you recall, during the Civil War, there were less hangings of so-called black persons, which actually were mixes of black, Native Americans, even some Irish blood in there, et cetera, et cetera. But there were more hangings, right, after chattel slavery, right, up until the 1890s. Then there was more hangings again than there were during slavery, during Jim Crow. Then there were more hangings again during slavery, right? There were more hangings again in the 1960s than there were during chattel slavery as well. Willie Lynch had taught them well. Willie Lynch had said, hey, your problem is that when I came off the boat, I could smell a whiff of dead slaves. Right? How you doing, Duke Boy? Thanks for being part of the community. He said, I could smell a whiff of dead slaves. That's what he said. He said, your problem is that you're off in the slave and you're afraid of them and you can't sleep because they want freedom. Right? And he said, and your problem is that you've been killing them, but that you think that's not a problem. He said, but the problem is that that's not, quote, good economics, unquote. He said, you can't just kill a Negro. You can't just kill a black man. You can't just kill an N-word male. He said you have to, and I'm gonna try my best to be as nice with the language as I can, because if we were to be honest about it, we got to speak like Nick Fuentes does, who they lift up for saying the N word over and over and over again, for saying that white people have every right to be racist, stuff like that. If I were, things like I don't, so-called white persons get mad at me for saying, and they boys say it all the time. Nobody stops him. He doesn't get taken off of social media. He keeps doing the interviews. Your favorite favorite Republican is Nick Fuentes, right? But you get off track. See, racism, white supremacy needs black blood. You said, is that why they call it lynching? Because of some guy's last name? Willie Lynch? Yeah. Well, not exactly. So Willie Lynch was like the Michael Jordan of chattel slavery. He lived in the Caribbean. He was brought over by his family members who were the Lynches into Virginia. And in Virginia, he actually made sure to teach them what it was to go ahead and go against chattel slavery. He did this. His most famous instance of this is December 25th, Christmas Day, December 25th, 1712, which means that if he was teaching Virginians, he basically taught the parents of George Washington, the parents and grandparents of Thomas Jefferson, James or John Monroe, James Madison. Am I saying that right, or is it James Monroe, John Madison? And by the way, if you didn't catch that, if you start your presidents with George Washington, then that means that your first four out of five presidents are all Virginia slave owners, right? Which means that this stuff matters, and that's why later on, when you get to the so-called Civil War, which is really just a revolutionary war that was lost, but the so-called Civil War, you'll discover that when Texas succeeds, Georgia succeeds, South Carolina succeeds, Missouri succeeds, Florida succeeds, and others, Georgia as well. There's a few others in there, and then others insinuate it but don't outright say it, but they'll outright say that not only do they believe that their God allows for chattel slavery, and that's what he wanted it to be from creation, they also believe that that's what their founding fathers wanted them to do, but that's because their founding fathers were Virginia slave owners. Right? So if that's what they do in Virginia, matter of fact, they start. You'll find like Thomas Jefferson and others started losing money on chattel slavery or whatever, but they died off and never paid their debt, so they still continue to be chattel slave owners and serial rapists and all these different things until they die. You'll see that very quickly, right? I'm always Israel, but I'm also, if you know about Israelites are Kemetic. E1B1A, E1B1B. All right, but that's not the focus for today, no offense. But how you doing, Weapon of Christ? If that was the weapon that was supposed to get me off, today I'm focused on 1350. Thank you for being on, I appreciate you. Or maybe you're just asking a genuine question. Today I'm getting a lot. Today I'm getting a lot from the trolls. I'm trying to maneuver through it. If you caught a stray, my apologies for missing. Be healed, Acham Yahshua. Right? So you said racism is an internal choice. Anyone can make it. No, racism is a system. Therefore, everybody has been raised under it. ISM on any word, beloved. Symbol etymology, you ready? ISM on any word means it is a system. You said some people are even racist against their own race? Yeah, that means that they would be a part of proficient in a system of competition. By the way, watch this. You ready for the word race? Let's put this out here too. The word race. What does the word race mean? Before somebody told you it was black, white, brown, yellow, polka dot, purple, green, whatever. What does race mean? If you were to go to a 2-year-old and say, we're going to race, what would the 2-year-old do? No. Before we see what I'm saying, the colonial, we're going to get there, but what in its original? Law of first mention, a race is, there we go, it's a competition. If I say to a 2-year-old, even if they know about a little bit of stuff going on, they're starting to go through things black and white, they would wait for you to say on your marks, get set, on your marks, get set, and then go, right? That would be what they were considering. The word race is competition, because what many of you do not know is that before you started using it with a dual meaning, at least in that regard, you started actually thinking about it like that because they used to consider species to be races. That's true, right? By the way, one of the most racist things ever written, right? I think you should call it a manifesto. And by the way, the person that wrote it, his only, it's not even legitimate, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, his only legit degree is actually as a preacher. But he wrote a book in 1859. I wonder what happened the next year after 1859, right? But he wrote a book in 1859 that picked up. It was picked up by all the royal families. It was pushed by all of the propagandists all over the place. He wrote a book. It was called The Origin of Species. Oh, got you. See, because a lot of you think you know the title of the book. That's not even the title of the book. The book was actually entitled The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or The Survival of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. That's right, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, when he wrote that book, his book is not entitled The Origin of Species. Actually, really, the whole thing is actually The Origin of Species, right? And then talks about evolution. But let's just go with what the one they want you to know today, which a lot of us won't just pick up and read and do some research. But the 1859, the book is entitled The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or The Survival of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. And what you will discover is on the bottom of that book, it says that the royal family backs it up, geological families back it up, and then it says there's also this other person who backs it up, or at least another group. It says that they are Linnaean. Who is Linnaean, or what is Linnaean? Well, you have to look up somebody named Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who believed that different animals were different races because they believed that they all compete against each other for the resources. So since they compete against each other, they're all in a race. These races were also known, or later on will be known as species. They eventually say there's not one human race. See, so when you guys even say there's a human race, you guys don't realize that you're saying that the competition is against each other. It's not a human competition. You should be working together, right? But you don't know any better. So you argue and even speak things into the universe that you're not even supposed to speak. You've been trained to think that this is correct, but this is incorrect. Carl Linnaeus, right, amongst others, believed that animals were in competition, and then they began to say, well, wait a minute, what if we as humans, we're in competition and we're always trying to wipe everybody out? Maybe we deserve to do so because it's survival of the fittest. And just like animals have races, or animals are different species, then maybe we come from different animals. And so Carl Linnaeus outlines 4 to start. Charles Darwin in his books expands upon it. But Charles Darwin makes it basic. He says, look, there's the white species, or the white race. There's the next up is the red species, or the red race. There's the yellow species, or the yellow race, and there's the black species, or the black race. And then you have Charles Darwin, who grows up in a household that is racist and Christian at the same time, go figure, and writes a book called, once again, The Origin of Species, right? Which is talking about the origin of all races, or meaning also known as what? The survival of favored races, right? Species that are in the competition in the struggle for life, which means that only one can survive, or only one should be in charge, right? Just like there's lions out there, and there's tigers out there, and there's elephants, and the only one is better than the other, right? Even though that's not how it works in nature either. That's not even how natural law works. Am I incorrect about that stuff? Some of you don't even know. But am I incorrect about that? But once again, you have to teach that, right? And evolution leads to eugenics. And I'm not even being figurative. Now, I'm not even being figurative in that. How you doing, Quino? I'm not even being figurative. Literally, Charles Darwin's cousin wrote the book on eugenics based off of his older cousin's writings. Person don't even know that. What you call eugenics, the founder of eugenics, is the cousin of Charles Darwin, who is also the brother-in-law of Charles Darwin. You do the math on that, right? But Charles Darwin's cousin is the father of eugenics, and he, as a younger person, looked up to his older cousin, older brother. He looked up to his older cousin's writings about how the white man, so-called white man, is greater in the struggle for life, and how it must be the will of the Most High that he evolved. And before somebody says Charles Darwin didn't believe in any higher powers, he was a scientist, yada, 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 Charles Darwin is also known as a lunatic, not crazy. Some of y'all would just say, yeah, I know he's crazy. No, no. Charles Darwin is known as a lunatic because lunatics actually were persons known for worshiping Ishtar or Easter, the moon deity, that some of y'all still worship and try to call it Passover. That's the truth. Salah, which means pause and think about it. He worshipped the moon. That's why he's known as a lunatic. Lunatics originally were just known as persons who worship the moon. Over time, a person started saying if you worship the moon, something wrong with you. But that's why he was a lunatic. Okay? So, things like this are put there. So that's why you consider race to even be a thing. So one says racism, race is a system to ensure that there's a survival of favored races in the struggle for life. What race is favored in this system, in this beast that we're talking about today? What race is favored? Uh-oh. See, we don't have honest dialogue. We got to have honest conversation. We're talking about this system. I'm not saying that all of you feel like this. I'm not saying that just because your mom and your granddaddy said this, that's the way it is. I'm telling you, in this system that's set up, who is the favored race, the so-called favored race? You said what does the black man and woman favor? I'm sorry, you got to make that live for me if you don't mind. Can you be more specific? I don't even know if it might be too specific. It might be something that's outside of my realm of thought. And if it is, maybe I'm not on your level yet. How you doing, King Business? Thanks for being part of the community. Racism is set up so that so-called white persons are at the top and so-called black persons are at the bottom. And then everybody who's in between, the lighter you are, the more favored you're supposed to be. Okay, Trans Priest, if you don't have anything else, that's not really going to get a response. You can put it up one more time if you want. Up there, already got you. That's what I was going to say. You're just going to get muted or blocked, right? And how you doing, P-Baby? Thanks for being part of the community. So a lot of persons don't want to talk about this. You said, why do people pay for their rent late? Because they're black? Because of Charles Darwin and your mind already being gone. You see what I'm saying? Eugenics. It's either going to be two things. It's societal or it's eugenics. Now, as I said earlier, one of the problems that so-called black persons have is that you keep waiting for so-called white persons to respect you as a human being. I'm not saying all, once again. It's not all. But the ones at the top who run it. And let us not forget Lyndon B. Johnson, who we've already talked about in the series, but who made it a point. I'm sorry, I don't have my MacBook with me today, or at least I do, but I don't have the I don't know. I'm not set up to really look stuff up right now. But he told you that if you want to have a poor white man give you his last dollar, all you have to do is tell him that he's better than the greatest of black men. Oh, somebody already got to him. I was about to delete the message, get rid of him too. Right? Lyndon B. Johnson, he's one of your presidents who was forced into a position by persons like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to finally have to at least say, all right, I'll sign a bill to say y'all are equal, but then still did a whole party switch after that. Do you guys recall, by the way, even like Richard Nixon? This is where you guys get off and you've been messed up with the 1350 thing. Number one, not only, if we be honest, black persons by per capita at least do commit more violent crime than others. Even though nobody wants to talk about how they're caged up, nobody wants to talk about how there's too much representation of police in our communities. Nobody wants to talk about how police are literally shooting at you. Nobody wants to talk about sometimes some of the black persons that you see wearing vests are against the police. Have any of you ever thought about the fact that the Crips and the Bloods actually started because they were fighting against police brutality? How you doing, Sister Allison? Or if that is Sister Allison, right? I think it is. I can't really see right now. Sorry. If it is that I'm saying the wrong person. How you doing, JJ? Like, have any of us ever thought about that? Crips and Bloods, who fight each other now, started off to fight against police brutality, just like the Black Panther Party did. Exactly. And, by the way, when the Crips and Bloods fought against police brutality and they started to fight against each other, guess who is responsible for having them fight against each other? This is why we got to stop allowing other persons in our business, because it was the CIA, it was the FBI, it was the so-called white establishment. COINTELPRO, right? It's the so-called white establishment. It wasn't us. But we believed the hype because even though we were doing things for ourselves, we still put anti-black sentiment at the top of our radar. I know some persons don't want to hear this. Persons don't want to get this. And if you already know, somebody say, I came here looking for the Bible today. Why aren't you talking about Bible? I already told you Balaam doctrine. If you don't know what that is, then if you know what Balaam doctrine is, you know that I'm not only on point. If you know if you know Proverbs chapter 122 and Proverbs 122 and Psalm, the 122nd division of Psalm and the 123rd division of Psalm, you know we already on it because it's revolutionary. Right? The only reason why when you go to prison, watch this. Prison, you would think everybody in there anyways who cares about stuff, but prison is the most divided on race. Any prison you go to, you're not going to change it either. Why? Because even the prisoners that are sent there, which are not only all black persons, are going to be divided. If you go in there in the prison and you white, you can't sit down at lunch and eat with somebody that's Mexican. You can't sit down at lunch and eat with somebody that's black. It don't matter if you and a Mexican are sellers. As what's his face taught us, said Ali Sadiq in his example, when Mexican got on boots, it don't matter if you my seller and you just got here. It don't matter if you done anything to me. When Mexican got on boots, everybody be careful. Those of us who right have been around it, have been in it, whatever, you know that I'm talking, because it's a continuation, and nobody talks about Hell's Angels up in there and how Hell Angels is a problem. Nobody talks about them Proud Boys who are in there. What is this? Tell me this. Why do we have tons of famous black athletes, not much whites, but you think blacks are on the bottom of the ranks? Tell me this. What are athletes? I mean that sincerely. What is the point of an athlete in this system? Because you've given me 1350 rhetoric, right? I'm gonna answer you real quick, right? Because you're too slow. You quick enough to come on here with some foolishness, but you're too slow, right? So let me help you with something. Athletes ain't nothing more than gladiators. Gladiators are slaves. You can be $1 million slave all day. And by the way, saying LeBron James makes $1 billion, so what? What does LeBron James do? Like, I'm being honest with you. I'm not here to call him a coon or nothing like that, but LeBron James dances. When they say LeBron James dances, you don't think so? LeBron James trying to get a basketball team under his belt. And just like Michael Jordan says, Republicans buy shoes too. LeBron James came and supported some Democrats a couple times, and y'all think he really cares. But they asked the man about China releasing a whole country that they still are not only colonizing but terrorizing. And there was at the time the Houston Rockets, now he's the Philadelphia 76ers, Daryl Morey, their general manager, said something about it. LeBron James came and told him to shut the F up. And I'm not even joking. Told him to shut the F up because he's messing up money. LeBron's not here to cause actual change. Have you looked at LeBron James' I Promise School? Look, maybe he don't know what he's doing. He probably doesn't. Maybe you put somebody else in charge. Have you looked at his I Promise School? Go look it up. Just because somebody's black doesn't mean that they work for black folk, right? Right? You know, like not all. You hear what I'm saying? Not every doctor, not just because you're black doesn't mean you care about your own people. Just because you're poor doesn't mean that you hope that all poor people come up. You can be poor and hope that you just come up by yourself, and then get to label everybody else as poor. How you doing, Auntie Marianne? You see what I'm saying? But you have it in your mind. See what I'm saying? Your whole thing is you think that when I talk about racism, white supremacy, you don't realize it's a system. And he's made it to the top of the system, but you don't make it to the top of the system if you're going to make sure that you free your people. And by the way, I said earlier today, if you missed this, for the sake of argument for today, my people are those who are anti-racist. You said the spoken word, but the physical Bible is changing. It the lion shall lay with the lamb. Yeah, the lion shall lay with the lamb. As far as going back to its original intent. You know that when you talk about Revelation 21 and 22, you're going back to Genesis chapter 1 and 2. The law first mentioned. Right? The lion was not designed to be the predator. If you want to even use that, the lion was not designed to be the predator. The lion actually was designed to be able to eat off of the land, just like human beings didn't eat meat in the beginning either. So we should go back to the original. So the lion with the lamb is not an excuse for everybody to sit down. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you meant. Maybe I missed the earlier part. If so, please forgive me for missing. How you doing, Etherin? Right? How you doing, Travorce? Thanks for being part of the community. You said most human beings are prisoners of their own minds. Good luck on finding the key. Well, it's not my responsibility to find the key. Those that have ears to hear will hear. This is not a plea or a begging of everybody to bow down. Many persons are perfectly fine with going through the motions and not doing anything because they're comfortable, right? Like if you're making $100,000 a year and somebody says, hey man, we might have to go ahead and fight racism, white supremacy, you can be blacker than black and not want to lose 100,000, and you'll sit right there and keep allowing the same stuff that happens to you and your family all day, every day. And you'll allow it to hurt and harm the so-called white woman too. Have you not realized that the white woman, right? One of the things that's always crazy when you have a white woman who's a racist, who's into racism, white supremacy, because do you not realize the only reason you even thought you had a need for feminism, which is Gloria Steinem, being assigned that by the CIA. So it's still, male chauvinism, so to speak. But that being said, the only reason why you think you need a feminist movement is because that you laid in bed with your so-called white husband, and the white husband promised he was going to give you the so-called key to the stuff and the money and all that, and then he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So now since he didn't do what you were supposed to do, you're mad about it and you want your cut. And are trying to talk about intersectionality, when the reality is that one of the reasons why you don't want us to go into the history of this either is because if we go into the 1600s, we got to start looking at law and say, wait a minute, why was there a law put on the books that it was okay for anybody to off a black child, or at least black property that was young? And the reason is because so-called white men were who were slave owners were not even so-called, they were R-wording, right, the N-word female and having children with her. And some of those children were actually winning lawsuits saying that we deserve the land. And so-called white women who were married to racism, white supremacists, right, were highly upset and offended by this, to the point to where they would get angry, upset seeing all these children running around looking more like their husband than their own babies. And they decided to start stomping like puppies. Well, I'm sorry, not like puppies, because if a puppy gets stomped, persons feel bad about that. If Emmett Till shows up in a newspaper the way that he does, a lot of persons say he got what he deserved. So, right? So we don't want to have that conversation. Because we have to ask ourselves, in this system, once again, this is not all white people, blah, blah. For the sake of argument, once again, I made it a point to say earlier, if you are anti-racism, we the same people. For the sake of this conversation, this is who I'm talking to, right? For those who are listening that don't have an ear for that and are trying to figure out how we can continue to keep racist rhetoric going, then this ain't for you. It's not my responsibility to heal the world. It's my responsibility to make sure that the community that I'm with and over and part of and working for, that we're straight. What does it look like I'm making sure that children in Africa are eating, and then my son tells you he ain't eating 2 weeks? What that look like? That's abuse. If you with us, then we're going to take care of you. If not, then hopefully you're taken care of. We believe in loving and even praying for our enemies and even feeding them if necessary and stuff like that. But I'm not going to take everything and change everything I do and everything I am for somebody who's my enemy, right? If I got an extra thing of food on me, I'll make sure I give it to you. If I got change in my pocket, I'll make sure I give it to you. But when somebody says he'll give you the shirt off his back, I don't do that for a stranger. Or not just any stranger, at least. Right? I don't just do that for anybody. You part of the nation. You fought the good fight, right? That's what y'all, right? Y'all like that scripture, don't you? I fought the Tabah fight. Okay, well, fight it. When you fight it and we fight side by side, and we're not just giving lip service to it, but you bleeding and I'm bleeding, and you protect my children and I protect your children, okay, we in this. What is it? You said Isaiah 11:6. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay, that's the context. I'm sorry. Well, actually, I guess that was always the context. My fault. I'm thinking something different. But also, too, well, we'll leave it there. I get you. I'm with you. We basically saying the same thing. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you feel that way. We're basically on the same path with that. All right. Chapter 10, chapter 11, chapter 12. Yeah. And then leading up to 65, Isaiah 65, Isaiah 66, etc., etc. But yeah. So for today, we're speaking once again specifically on the 1350 mindset and how basically it's just there to uphold slavery. Now, why am I saying all this? Somebody's saying, well, what do you mean uphold slavery? Well, because that you're dealing with prison. Right? Prison still needs to work. Question, are there more prisoners? Are there more prisoners? Are there more prisoners? Right? Watch this. Are there more black persons in prisons in America now, or were there more black persons on plantations in 1865? This is why 13. There's more. Yeah, there's more black persons in prisons. Right. My son he's 10 years old. He got it. Right. Are there more? I'm gonna ask the question again because some of y'all don't get. Are there more black persons in prison now, or were there more black persons on plantations in 1865? The answer is there's more black persons in prison now than there were on plantations. And by the way, what is prison but nothing more than an authorized, privately owned plantation? Which, by the way, what was a plantation? A privately owned, authorized prison. The population has grown, so what? Matter of fact, let's do one that's not based off of color because you guys will still try to flip it, but that's okay. Still appreciate you. Still stay on as long as you're respectful, right? Watch this. 25% of the prison population of the world is in the United States of America. Not in North America, not in the Americas. 25% of the prison population in the world is in the United States of America. Why do you think that is? That's right. Some prisoners still picking cotton. You still have persons who are on horseback with guns watching over them. 25%. Let's take race out of it just for a second, because you guys are so colorblind that you don't realize that colorblindness is actually a health issue and you should get your vision checked, right? But watch this. 25%, 1 out of every 4 prisoners worldwide are going to be in the United States of America. Now, you think that that's random, but that's actually because of a loophole in the 13th Amendment that says the only way you can keep chattel slavery going is to arrest. That's it. I mean, it's a little more complicated, obviously, but that's it. What you don't want to talk about. What was the Civil War fought about? See, we'll really see where persons are when we answer this question and see the answers. What was the Civil War fought about? Uh-oh. You all right? Okay. You just resting? What was the fight? What was the reason the Civil War was fought about? Uh-oh. Come on, those who were in support of 1350, don't get quiet on me now. Industrialization, kind of, sort of. Industrialization versus what? It was really capitalism. We can put industrialization as basically kind of part of that for sure. But capitalism versus what? The Union. The Union were capitalists. What was the main thing that made the South their money? And not the South as a whole, right? Even though it is the South as a whole, because everybody's affected by it, because everybody worked for the persons at top. But the persons that were on top of the South, they made their money based off of what? How many times have I actually been locked up? I actually was locked up for something that I didn't do, and even though technically I have no criminal charges ever against me or whatever on paper. I did have to wait 9 months for a right to a speedy trial, and simply didn't get out because I was a black pastor in Washington, D.C., and it was something that they thought would have been provocative to go ahead and have me in newspapers. But unfortunately, 3 prosecutors tried to see if they can get it. The grand jury never even thought it was worth anything. It was tried out, but once you're in there, they got your social security number. You give up your name for a prison number, right? So I actually know about this from personal experience too, as well as going back and making sure that we help prisoners as well. Which, by the way, we do have a prison. We put some stuff out there. I'm gonna try to put it out some more. If you can help, we have a petition we're part of to help somebody that was wrong, that's being wrongfully held in prison, even held in a place in prison that he doesn't even deserve to be in. Okay? So if you can help us with that, we actually do the work. See, because unlike many of you who just talk trash about stuff, we actually put work in. But it was slave labor against capitalism. That's what it was about. Slave labor versus capitalism. Okay, you said you have a different opinion. Watch this. Here's the difference. You said this is a dead argument. So watch this. Then why be part of something that why even to give me your opinion if the argument is dead to you? Just go somewhere. You're not here to actually have an argument. Arguments have rules. Debates have rules. And you're coming up with stuff and even saying ad hominem. Ad hominem basically says that you're basically trying to go to the man. Hey, you're stupid enough to be in an argument that doesn't even make sense. Then you need to go because you have no apologetic soundness to you. In other words, you don't even know how to argue a point correctly. Right? But Jesus is God? No, Jesus is not God. In Hebrew, Jesus' name is, you can't even have, Jesus means half man, half Zeus. You ready for this? Real quick, and then I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of you because obviously you don't know what you're talking about. Just being honest with you today. I told you today's the day where you're just going to get the truth. Right? I try to normally dress it up a lot better than I can, but today I don't have the patience for it. Just being honest. Not because I'm not called to be patient, but patience runs out. I'm long suffering, and that's why I don't say certain things towards you guys that you guys say back towards me. That being said, Jesus means half man, half Zeus. Zeus means Zeus. Pegasus is the horse of Zeus. Dionysus is the son of Zeus. Dionysus is the daughter of Zeus. Perseus is the son of Zeus. If you don't know you don't know enough Greek to recognize that you're not even saying his name, number one. Number two, even in Greek, if you notice, there is no letter J sound because in Greek there's no letter J in their alphabet. You said, but come to exit 8? Shoot, you can come over here. Right? But once again, like I said, moderated, just somebody that's a child or somebody with the mind of a child. So I'm going to actually be nice to you because I could just go ahead and just have you never come back on again, but you just be muted for 24 hours. If you actually would like to learn something or whatever, which you haven't come for that, it doesn't seem like you have the heart for that or the ears for that. I don't have the time for you today. Just being honest. How you doing, Ray Charles? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? So, and all these different things that are going on, right? I'm talking all this stuff about exit 8 and blah, blah, whatever. Man, whatever. Whatever. As if somebody's supposed to be afraid of you. People who talk like that behind the keys is always weird. Like, why would I be like, oh, I'm going to come and beat you up? Y'all be weird. I already got it. It's okay. Right, but y'all on some weird stuff. Right? Stuff that you wouldn't say to my face, but you'll say in front of them or whatever. If you really about whatever, you're talking about come to exit 8. As if, by the way, and I'm 6'5.5", and I ain't necessarily the best fighter to ever live, but it ain't gonna be no easy battle. But let's just say I showed up or whatever, and you happen to win. What does that have to do with me being correct, fool? That's foolish. Like no. I guess you know what? No shade. That's being foolish. I'm gonna call it what it is. You calling me this, calling me that, whatever. I'm gonna call it what it is, bro. You being a fool. You better than that, right? Persons who are really strong for real, don't run around trying to whoop folk. I used to be that dude that never talked and only tried to squabble. That never proved anything to anybody other than, okay, he can swing. And, right? But once again, you have just proved, right? You've just proven the 1350 thing to be wrong because you have a mind to squabble up to show how violent I am. How crazy is that? You know what I'm saying? Or that's not exactly your argument, even though that's what we're talking about today. You are literally trying to show me that you'll squabble up against me and you'll beat me up, and that'll prove that 1350 rhetoric is something that's not worth having a conversation about. I'm gonna call it what it is. That's stupid. And you're better than that, or you're just immature, you're a little child. Right? You're immature, you're a little child. So, that being said, back to what we're talking about. Persons don't want to hear this because the loophole that was given by Abraham Lincoln, by the way, because we're not giving passes to persons that never liked himself and never loved us either, right? I know, Brother Alex, I'm trying. I'm just being honest. Today, one of them days. If cats really knew what was going on behind the scenes or whatever, you give me a day, I understand. But I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna say nothing foolish. I'm not gonna do the stuff that I sometimes in my flesh won't come up or whatever. But today, one of them days, right? That's why today gonna be a shorter one too. Because if I go the full 3 hours today, who knows what's gonna come up? I'm just being honest with you. Today is one of them days, right? Like one of them days that you hope don't come around again for a lifetime type thing, right? But pray for me. That's why I said in the beginning, pray for me. Y'all don't know what's going on a little bit, but for right now, just pray for us as a family. We got an emergency situation we're going through, but we're gonna make everything work, right? But yeah. So, and all this stuff going on, and all the stuff that's going on, the loophole is the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says that you have to still enslave to do what you do. And thank you, JNEL, right? The 13th Amendment says you have to still enslave to do what you do. You can't have prisons if you don't have slaves. And you can't have slaves unless you arrest them. And watch this. The longer the crime, the longer the penalty for the crime, the longer you have the slave labor. I see you, brother. Right? Just let's go over this again. The loophole is the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment allows you to have slaves, but you can't have the slaves now unless you arrest them. Right? You can't arrest them, right, unless they've committed a crime. This is why you start seeing persons get arrested and put in prison for stuff like jaywalking. Or even things like resisting arrest peacefully. How do you peacefully resist arrest? Right? Right? You see what I'm saying? But you have to have slaves. This is how you get 3 strikes and you're out. And Democrats, because it don't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, when you get Democrats now, granted, I think Bernie, who seems to be crazy enough to actually believe the system will work, and I told persons this, Bernie would have been an interesting choice. I wouldn't have voted because I don't vote. I have a king, right? King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That being said, Bernie would have been interesting to see him do something because he just don't care. He crazy enough that he would have just given his life. He would have done some stuff, or at least promoted some stuff, and probably would have had the system dumped on his end because I think he's, for the most part, genuine. He got to play the game, but I think for the most part he's more genuine than anybody I've ever seen, or at least for a long, long time. Right? That being said, super predators, everybody else in there, Biden, Clinton, right? Kennedy Jr., whatever, or no, Ted Kennedy, whatever. All these cats, guess what they was on? Guess what they was on? They was all on some, y'all are super predators because you're black. Once again, how do they explain it? You're either going to explain it societally or you're going to explain it through eugenics, genetic. That's it. Right? And here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. They don't care if it's Republicans or Democrats to do it. It's the same bird. They just keep switching back side by side. And when you had going back to Nixon was very intelligent because Nixon decided that what he was going to do was he was going to get the so-called white frustrated South to do what Lyndon B. Johnson did with them. And he got them to be against not only black folk, but he focused, and of course Spanish person. They said that, it used to, it used to be no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. That turned into no blacks, no Mexicans, no dogs, right? But we don't talk about Spanish persons and their dwellings too, because a lot of Spanish persons were allowed to be white. They were just never given the promises that white persons were supposed to have, and they still fight and cape up a lot for them too. And then Spanish persons that considered themselves to be black, they got punished. So they still kept it white black. Although they told Mexicans, okay, they told everybody coming in, okay, you gotta kind of refer to yourself as white. Now you can sign up for yourself as Spanish. Back then it was white or black. That's it. We got to keep the division. We got to make it real clear. But somebody got a smart idea one day. We need to put as much stuff to divide as possible on paper. We'll even we'll give Native Americans certain things that we won't give blacks. If we'll give blacks certain things, we won't give the Spanish. If we'll give Spanish certain things, we don't give the black. If we'll give others certain things that we don't give the Spanish. That's why it's there, to cause you guys or for us to be divided. To be divided based off of color.
One time I was watching a video and it was about 15 times police running people over.
Oh yeah.
And a black homeless man got ran over. While he was running from the police for no reason. I don't know why. And I think they said that he died after that.
He probably did. And there are many persons who lose their lives, right? But we have to believe that that's okay. Watch this. Here's one of the greatest examples as to how you keep chattel slavery with the 1350 mentality. You ready? Or how you keep allowing it. Trayvon Martin. Somebody say, man, we heard enough about Trayvon. We done with Trayvon, blah, blah. All right, watch this. Watch this. Trayvon Martin. You ready? You ready? Trayvon Martin was offed by, what's his name? I forget his name now. Mr. Skittles himself. And that by itself, just the Skittles piece, should show you how wild this country is on this stuff. But what was the law? Right? He's in Florida, so I'm giving you a hint. Ryan Zimmerman, thank you. But was it Ryan? Whatever his name is, Zimmerman, right? What was the law that was used to protect Zimmerman? What was the law? Because remember, if you've heard, maybe you haven't heard it before. And how you doing, Vincent Cruz? Right, Cruz. Right. Maybe you haven't heard this before. Right. He went when the 911 call was made, saying that there was a threatening little black boy who he said was this threatening black man walking around, which is what it's supposed to be, 1350, right? So was walking around. He used a Florida law, Floridian law that many of us know what it is. Thank you. How you doing, One Life? He used a stand your ground law. Right? He used a stand your ground law. That's what he used. Yeah, shalom, Auntie Marion, if you didn't hear me earlier. I think I said it earlier. If not, please forgive me. Right? He used the stand your ground law. That was the law. What does stand your ground law mean? It means that you have a right to defend yourself, right? I used to think it had to be on your property, right? You had to be on your property, but apparently it's supposed to be the stand your ground law is basically anywhere in Florida. It protects you not only with your peace, but you can even knuckle up to handle your peace or to make sure you keep your peace, so to speak. How you doing, Janet? Right? That's supposed to be the stand your ground law, right? Has anybody ever considered that Trayvon Martin was also in Florida? That Trayvon Martin was also a Floridian? And therefore Trayvon Martin also had a law that was supposed to be able to speak for him that is also called stand your ground. Has anybody ever considered, just considered that? That if both of them are in Florida and both of them have the right to defend themselves, then the same law that they use for Ryan Zimmerman is the same law one should use for Trayvon Martin. Is that correct? And how you doing, Miss Caddy? And thanks for being on with us, right? And thank y'all for the love, right? Let us just consider this. If there's a law called stand your ground, and the law, right? Roll with me for a second. Oh, that was for him. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Salaman. Bien. Vite. You don't have to stay that long. Just real quick. Look. You see?
I can't see.
Okay, Auntie Marion say Grand Rising.
Oh, Grand Rising.
Yeah.
Auntie Mary.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted you to see it. You can go ahead and play. I'm almost finished. So, She loved him some him, and he loved him some her. I gotta mention that they say hi to each other. So, well, yeah, to stand your ground, long. It affects both. How you doing, Sister Beverly? The same state, right? If we're being right, I'm gonna show you how it is. Same state, same place, same gated community. Both supposedly feel like they have a threat. 911 is made by Ryan Zimmerman. Zimmerman follows him and says, "I'm following the person." They say, "You don't need to do that. We don't want you to do that. We don't need you to do that." It's said clear as day, which means that if the 911 person says that, is because the reason why they're telling them that is because not only would they prefer the police handle it, which he's not a police officer, they also want to make sure that the law is taken care of. So he's literally breaking the law. He breaks the law, and Trayvon Martin, in a state where he can stand his ground, beats the brakes off of him. You said by the law they both had stand their ground authority. One of the force. No. Let's get this together, because that's one of the things too. No offense to you, just saying in general. One of the things that nobody even talks about. Trayvon Martin was in a place where you should be allowed to stand your ground. Nobody mentions that. That is something we just act like we gloss over. But then number two, Ryan Zimmerman broke the law, being a threat to Trayvon, which means that Ryan Zimmerman was the threat, and by law, Ryan Zimmerman should have gotten his behind whipped, and we should have supported it by Floridian standard, by United States Corporation standards of respecting the state law. We should have respected it, and we should have respected it so much that Ryan Zimmerman should have been arrested and have gone to jail or prison, of course, eventually, for committing murder. Instead, Ryan Zimmerman technically was not even arrested. You know, just because they put handcuffs on you doesn't mean you're arrested, right? So that means that the person who broke the law was supported, and the person who died following the law was villainized. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? But you tell me that the 1350 thing is the one thing that we're going to pretend is real in the system. The system is a farce. He was the wrong color. And in racism, white supremacy, your color matters more than the law. This is why the Christian nationalist doesn't care about the law of the Most High. Because why would he care about the law of the Most High? Because law of the Most High is superseded by the color of the person who touches the Bible. According to them. Oh, I know you don't want to hear that. You didn't come here for that. That's the truth. In order to reverse the curse, we got to revisit the lie. Beloved, divide, Yehovah, Yehudi, Judah, Negro, Black, nation, hear me. In this wicked beast, the system is set up to where your color matters more than what's in your heart. Stop quoting MLK and talking about that you're an American, because the American doesn't believe that MLK. Matter of fact, y'all can do the research. Go look up, instead of listening to what everybody just tells you, go read and research and look up what person said about MLK, black, white, and otherwise. Listen to some of his speeches where he's out here telling you specifically, I'm tired of being labeled a criminal because of the color of my skin. Why don't you quote that? Why don't you quote when he says it's a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstrap when he has no boot? Why don't you admit that when he was marching in 1963, he said, we're coming and we're coming for our check? Why is it that nobody wants to talk about the fact that his family won a civil case, right? They won against the state. Why don't we quote that? Thank you. Why don't we quote MLK said, I led my people into a burning building. Meaning that I thought I did what I could. I thought we could get in there if we got so-called integrated, and now I realize that we should have never been integrated at all. That's when he took his life. But he started talking like that because he starts talking the truth. That's what he said. But why don't we talk about that? Because 1350 wants you to believe that so-called black men are violent because they're born. So-called white men are righteous no matter how much violence. And I'm not saying all white men, all black men. We discussed that already. My time is pretty much up. I told you we got an emergency. We got to get on the road. We got to make it down south before, basically, before this evening. That being said, I'm gonna leave you with this. Have any of you heard? I don't know how old and new this is, by the way. Has anybody heard the news article about two so-called white men? Right, two so-called white men that had to two so-called white men that were going to Haiti to try and kidnap black women to enslave them sexually. Have any of you heard that? Did any of you read about that? Did they put that out there? Did they even say these white men da-da-da-da? No. They didn't put that out there, these white men, but that's what it was. Two racist white supremacists. One actually joined the military, is it the Air Force? One of them went to a military boot camp to try and learn better and to become better so that he could help. They went to Washington, D.C. to recruit poor white men to help them out so they can go ahead and go over to Haiti and enslave poor black women. Does anybody recall? This is got to be 2020, 2021, possibly 2022. Or maybe it's a little even before. I think it's 2020, 2021. They're in Atlanta, Georgia. They arrested a whole a slew of so-called white persons who had enslaved, chattel slavery, enslaved so-called black persons and so-called Mexicans together. Has anybody taken time out to actually do a little bit of research and realize that there were actual chattel slavery did not stop? It stopped on paper in 1865, but chattel slavery, and we're talking outside of prison, on plantations outside of prison. It stopped supposedly in 1865, but there were still plantations where persons were being born and raised as chattel slaves into the 1960s and 70s. We know this because the children who were being raised in the 60s and 70s have actually come out in the 2010s and 2020s and talked about their experience and how they saw their parents and their uncles and stuff literally be hung and castrated and stuff in front of them, and seen their mothers get messed over, and they felt like, and one guy felt so horrible because he knew he couldn't do anything about it. But they tell you and I that this thing is over. How many, by the way, can I just be honest, honest experience? A lot of you know that we end up traveling a lot. There are certain places I most certainly still will not go through at certain times of night. You know why? Not only if somebody recognizes me, but just because I'm 6'5.5", I wear my natural hair, and because I'm so-called black, there's somebody who's ready to put a rope on me, and no matter how strong or powerful or covered by the blood I think I am, I'm not trying to find out I'm fighting 50 mother off. Okay? Real talk. These cats were getting ready. By the way, that's international chattel slavery, sex slavery, based off of the color of somebody's skin only. And by the way, they were going for underage girls. The same thing Christopher Columbus did in the same place Christopher Columbus went to, by the way. Hispaniola is Haiti and Dominicano. The Haitian and the Dominican. He was going to the same place where the Dominican thinks he's better than the Haitian because of the color of his skin. And the Haitian hates the color of their skin, trying to be like the Dominican. The same thing today. But the lie that they told you and I is what? It's over. Don't worry about it. Why are you talking about this stuff? Why are you believing in these things? This stuff doesn't matter. If they would just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Hey, I as a poor white Italian had to go through this stuff too. I as a poor Irishman had to go through this stuff too. Well, yeah, they used to all have us all in the same place. But you never were in the ghetto. No, I was. How dare you? I, as a young Jewish person, I know what it is to be in a ghetto. You know that the first persons who were in ghettos were, in fact, Jews, not Jewish persons. And those Jews were called Yehudi, and they were known as being swarthy. They had locks, and they go all the way back to the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. And those ghettos still exist in Portugal and Spain. Well, at least in Portugal, maybe not Spain, but I think they exist in both Portugal and Spain to this day. What you talking about? The only reason why you could hide it and fit in is because all you had to do is be raised without that Irish accent, or at least be allowed to, learn how to hide it. All you had to do was learn how to go ahead and hide that Italian accent. And even if you showed the WAP or whatever, hey, white is close enough. The white skin is close enough. Anybody know WWE? Right? If I say this, you'll get it. If you know WWE, if this is for WWE, I'm done. We got to get on the road. Anybody who know what I'm talking about, though, if you were ever a fan, especially in what they call the Attitude Era, you know about the Dudley Boys, right? And you know about one of them was named Bubba Dudley, right? Bubba Dudley, a lot of y'all probably think of Bubba Dudley as being, country boy, or being a New Yorker. Being a New Yorker, or maybe you think of him as being like a country boy. Bubba Dudley is Italian. Some of y'all might have known that, but you probably had to research it if you knew it, or had to wait for somebody to tell you that, or you had to watch a podcast or something for him to admit it. Bubba Dudley is Italian. If you look at that man, most of y'all, especially the way we was raised, most of y'all don't know that man's Italian. The only reason that you know he's Italian is if he wants you to know. And when he's coming up, his character, or what gets him paid, is not being Italian. He's supposed to be white first, Italian later. Right? You're supposed to be white first, not American first. White first. I know they want to say America first, but Nick Fuentes, once again, who literally says the N-word over and over and over again, supported by Trump. Tucker Carlson, who interviews him, supported by Trump. Kanye West, wearing swastikas, White Lives Matter shirts, which white lives do matter, but why is it you can't say Black Lives Matter, right? Right? But Kanye West, we're doing all that with Candace Owens and all these cats are helping to develop a society to where racism continues, because what we don't recognize is, look, Walmart needs you to go to prison because most of the stuff in Walmart that you buy is made in prisons, right? Chick-fil-A needs prisons. They support it. Look up ALEC, A-L-E-C. Look who supports them. They need to support gun movements, and they need to support, while although the NRA and so-called white persons buy more guns and everything than anybody else, Walmart sells more guns than anybody else in the world, unless you're talking about persons selling to the military. Walmart, and even with that, I think Walmart's up there, but Walmart sells more guns to anybody else in the world. Guess what? They support racism, white supremacy. Any racism, white supremacist group out there, they support it. They put their money towards it. Straight up. I'm not calling for a Walmart ban. I'm telling you the truth. Amazon supports any racism, white supremacist group because Amazon needs prisoners. This is why 1350 is there. You're not going to question Sam Walton's family. Thank you. You're not going to question the Walton family as long as you make sure that you got that pillow made by the prisoners in the back of your head. Yeah, I know, because for persons like you, racism, white supremacy is overblown because you enjoy it, or at least you like to look the other way. And for persons, that's really my point at the end. My point at the end is this, my real point, the real point that hopefully you get, and really we got to go for real for this time. The point that I really have for you above all is that the same type of person today that says you're overdoing it, you talking about it too much, right? You're talking about are the same persons who said we're over talking and we're doing too much about it today. You're the same type of person. You're the same type of person who would have fought against John Brown. You're the same person today that says that John Brown was crazy because he wanted to make sure that even though he, as a white man, he stood up and said that the Bible says that black persons deserve freedom. And if you don't think they deserve freedom, he said you got to die. Now, I don't believe that all the way. Yah will take care of heaven and hell for us, and he will fight our battles. And if you come against me, I will defend my family. That being said, hey, I got mad love for anybody who will put blood on the ground because he believes that humanity should be treated with respect. You're the same type of person. You're the same type of person who says, oh man, you know what? Prisons and stuff like that, they deserve it, and blah, blah. Just like Bill Clinton said. You Republicans, you support the same thing Bill did, right? You don't like to admit that, but y'all Republicans and Democrats are the same. Meanwhile, back then, there were a bunch of persons that said the same thing. Hey, you know what? He's black in grace. There was one chattel slave, and he fought for freedom. You know, did you see what Nat Turner did? Yeah, Nat Turner fought for freedom. Did you see this one black slave that went ahead and so-called, you know what, raped a white girl? Even if he did, which more than likely he didn't, did you ever think about the fact that he did it because he was tired of seeing his mama get raped over and over again, or he was getting raped by white men? No excuse for it, it's still sin. But you don't want to talk about the societal issue. You don't want to talk about the fact that he's fighting for freedom, and that might be his fight. Or he might have just gone crazy, or if he's wrong, he's wrong. But if you won't talk about the person who rapes him to a place where he says, okay, I'm going to take vengeance, even though vengeance is the Lord's, right? I'm not agreeing with it, but I'm saying you won't say anything about the person who raped him. You won't say anything about the person who forced his people. You won't say anything about the fact that not all, but a lot of us so-called black persons are literally mixed in America because literally it was written into legislation that it was okay to breed us, to have us to be smart enough to do different tasks, and that some could be in the house, some could be in the attic, some could be outside, some could be in the shed that was falling apart, but it was based off of color, all of it.
It's 10:05.
Yeah, it's 10:05. So, anyways, we've been doing this series for a little bit. I wish I had a little bit more time. Normally we go a little longer on Sundays, which is usually us going probably till about at least 11:30 a.m. New York time. Can't do it today because, no, 11:30 a.m. New York time. But due to today, due to some stuff going on, we really do have to get on the road. If you enjoy, or at least if you're interested in some of what you heard, this is not the only stuff we talk about, but we do look at it through the lens of righteousness. And yes, righteousness does require that if somebody's racist, that we call it out. I know for a lot of you, you think that that's nothing because, you know, that's part of that whole grace unmerited favor, that predestined stuff that says, doesn't matter what I do. That's what the Puritans believe. We can come over and we can off as many natives and we can throw all types of pox upon them and everything. But hey, it doesn't matter because if we say, not God says, they say their God said it. But if we say we're going to heaven, we're going to heaven. No matter what. That's what they teach, right? And that's what a person still do. It's as American as hanging a Negro. Look up what a picnic is and where that word comes from. It's as American as a picnic, where you're picking that word, you put them up to a tree, you heat them up afterwards, you give out pieces of it to people, and they take it, and they didn't have TVs back then, they just put it over their fireplaces on the mantle, and so when persons came over, they say, oh wow, what part of a Negro was that, and where did you go? And now them same cats want to do dances so they can be invited to the barbecue, when the only reason they used to invite you was so that they can go ahead and sell pieces of you, to make sure that they raise money for the church. Go look up, just look this stuff up. Go look up old church programs that literally have it set up in there where we're going to have a picnic and go see what they did at the picnic. Read some of the picture books or look at some of the picture books they have back there so you can see what they were doing. Read some of the books about how what temperature they used to cook you at. Cats come on here with anyways. All right, I'm done, for real. All right, love y'all to life. You all take care. Sorry if this was a little intense. Sometimes it can be like that. And I apologize. I know I was probably a little more feisty than normal. And I hope I kept my decorum enough to where I didn't embarrass anybody who's part of SOC as a pastor. If I did, my apologies. I will do better. Pray for us. Pray for my family. Pray for our SOC family. We're going to get on the road and we're going to do what we're supposed to do. I thank you all. I appreciate the moderators. I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. And once again, just the only announcement I have for today, thank you to the ministerial staff who made sure you guys still did prayer. My mind and everything, because the stuff going on wasn't even there. So I couldn't get it together. So thank you to Elder Anais, who always leads us, and those who came on today. Sisters, once again, we were supposed to have the women's meeting last night. Because of what we're going through right now, it's the reason why we can't say what it is yet, but you guys will know. And once you know what it is, you'll know, especially because of the timing of it, you'll know why. That didn't happen last night. That being said, I'm going to double check. So this is tentatively speaking. I'll tell you for sure tomorrow. But tentatively speaking, we'll try to have a women's thing for you guys, a women's live session for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, where it'll be me and the sisters. You can take it whatever way you want to go. It'll be sisters first. Y'all can talk about anything you guys want to. Thank you, Sister Deborah. I appreciate that. Right now, prayer is what we need, as always. But yeah. But yeah. So sisters, tentatively speaking, I got to get 100% permission. It's something that I mentioned, but right now, just because of what we're doing, I just got to make sure it's 100% permission or whatever. But we're gonna try and do something for you all on a special live session from like 7 p.m. to maybe like 7:45 p.m. or something like that, just for the sisters on the original Kofi_40 channel on TikTok. So we will try to make that happen. We haven't done the last 3 months, I think. Every time it's been time for you guys, something crazy has happened. And then we had, obviously holy days in there as well. So that kind of messed with things a little bit too. And then having time off didn't help. So we will try our best to correct that. So just, if you can, even if you miss it, we'll make sure we record it. But we'll make sure that we make up for that. I apologize. But once again, when you guys find out, the timing of everything, you'll know why. And, hopefully, you'll be as forgiving as you always are. So love y'all. Thank you so much. Peace. Continue to do what Yah's called you to do. Unless something crazy happens, we still plan on being on tomorrow, early rising Bible study session, live session, all that great stuff. Having our, we might have to push back the project management meeting for Zoom, but we do plan on, I don't know. I don't know. So far, let's just say everything that's supposed to be on for tomorrow is on for tomorrow. Okay. Including the women's meeting. Let's just plan on that. I will tell everybody for sure everything tomorrow at 8 a.m. for the live session. All right. So love you all to life. You all take care. Pray for us. Prayerfully, we'll hit our destination tonight as we plan. We really need to get there tonight. So love y'all. I'm going to take every extra minute I can. So we're going to end here. I'm going to be obedient. Thank you, moderators. My mind's just not all the way there. So if there's certain things I lapsed in today, or if there's certain persons I snapped on or something like that, I really do apologize. But I believe we did pretty well. So we'll leave it at that. But anyways, thank you again. You all take care. Thank you for joining us. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. Yehovah Elohim. We give our praise and honor to Him. For my wife, the Honorable Maya. Thank you to young Solomon for hanging out and playing some sports and stuff with me, and even giving a little bit of conversation and stuff, and learning on the fly, learning how to do. So until next time, we give our honor and praise to Yah. We give our honor and praise to my wife, the Honorable Maya. And remember, as always, fam, that you were loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, take care, and we'll talk with you soon. Peace.
Shalom.